because
Just
I'm not able to figure out.
Yeah, if you can add a little bit of. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our talk show. We have been doing this talk show for about 4 days now. This is our fourth talk show in this series that we are planning for. And as you know, we are wanting you to talk. So the name of the show is Let's Talk. We are here with Bhuvneshwari Cheru. And ma'am, if you can please introduce yourself and give a brief of your experience and give that confidence to our participants today that they can talk to you. I'm expecting that there will be a lot of questions that will be coming your way.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ashoka. Firstly, I want to sincerely appreciate this initiative of yours, Ashoka. I think it is brilliant because these are times when we have to talk and the entire world is in a space where, we really don't know what's happening and what's in store. So I think this initiative where you're actually opening out a platform for youngsters to come up and talk to others is a brilliant thought. It's a brilliant thought. And for the rest of you, my name is Bhuvneshwari Cheru, and you can call me Bhuvna. That's what a lot of people call me. And I have been working in the corporate field for the past 20 years. I have predominantly been working on branding, communications, and PR. But having said that, I have been working very closely with other departments, especially the human resources in various organizations that I've worked with. And I am here to talk to you guys regarding any questions that you might have when it comes up to a transition from campus to corporate. That's a huge transition, and I'm here to help you in whatever way I can.
Thank you, Bhuvna. Before we start, I just want to understand your perspective on what sort of general challenges do you see, especially with these youngsters who are trying to get into a corporate, because all this while they had been coached, they had been taught in the colleges, and we come from this general Indian mindset that we are not going to ask many questions even when we are in our classrooms. But when we suddenly get into a corporate, it's a different ball game, because I remember my days when I had to start asking questions and seek help for myself, and I was not prepared for that. I was still in that perspective that someone else will come in and ask if I'm comfortable, ask if I'll need some help, ask if I'm understanding things, but that is not how it is going to. That is not how it was. So I just wanted to understand what sort of a general challenge that you see from these youngsters who step in, because you've had this rich HR experience as well. So I want you to add more value here.
Yeah, sure, Ashoka. See, the one thing that I tell kids as soon as they come into the organization is, number one, the most important thing that I have realized that I tell everybody is, no question is a silly question. Ask whatever comes to your mind, because there is a lot of difference, Ashoka. Very frankly, 20 years back when we started working, right, the openness and the understanding and the support which was given was far lesser than right now. What I see is that corporates are going into that mode of having buddy mentors for youngsters and opening out programs for them, and there's a lot of more hearing of voice which is happening nowadays, right? I request the youngsters not to let go of that. Use every opportunity where the seniors are coming to you and talking to you, and feel free to ask questions. Ask and ask and ask, because the first 2 to 3 years is when you are imbibing, when you're understanding what this entire change in life is about. And trust me, there is a huge change when it comes from campus to corporate. You're learning, and over here you're contributing. As you're learning, you're contributing, right? So you have to be on the same lines that the organization is expecting from you. That is one of the most important things which is going to set you on the path. And one other thing which I like to impress upon is, please do not think that you will wait for 5 years or 6 years and then figure out what you want to do, right? You need to understand every now and then, you need to keep figuring out short-term goals for yourselves. Right? So these are a couple of off-the-hand things which I generally tell everyone. And I think we can go into depth when we go into the questions a little more.
Sure. I've already started getting questions, and I would want to take our first question for the day. It says, I always take the lead in a team. I like everything to be planned and therefore follow according to that and meet the deadlines. I prefer doing work at a fast pace from the starting rather than running at the end. But the problem arises when the individual work lags behind. First, I get a little upset and then it turns into anger and then sadness follows. Is it normal? I get really upset when individuals don't put so much effort. Please help me out.
Well, may I know the name of who? Acha, this is an anonymous platform, right? Fine.
Yeah.
So the point is, we have to be very cognizant when we are working, and this is agnostic of whether you're a fresher or a mid-level manager or a senior level manager, right? We have to be very cognizant that different people work in different styles, right? As even when you're managing a team or when you're a part of a team, the most important thing is understanding the approach, understanding what is each one's USP, unique selling point, or unique quality, right? What each member's unique quality is, and how you will work as a team considering all those, right? I do understand there are some people, I'll give you a very personal example of that, right? My mom was a person who used to do things extremely fast. And my dad was a guy who would take a little longer to do the same things, as simple as covering our school books. That I used to see my mom get really angry. That she would be like, dude, I am finishing covering a book in like say 30 seconds and you're taking a minute and a half. But then trust me, there is another thing, that the quality of what my dad would do would be far better than the quality of what my mom did, right? But I'm not saying that just because you're doing it fast, the quality is going to be low, but please be cognizant that different people work at different paces, and neither should you beat yourself down or try to pace yourself lower, nor should you expect everybody else to work at the same pace. Right? The key is balance. The key is balance between all the team members, and ultimately your goal should be to have the team succeed and not just one person, not just prove to the rest of the world that there is this one person who's doing better than the others. That ultimately is not going to be a win. It might be a momentary gain, but it's not going to be a long-term win.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am. I'm just going back to what you've explained. And I also feel that there's a certain level of understanding that students needs to have while they are still in the colleges. Because when I was in Australia and when I was also traveling to different countries, like I've seen the same happening in Singapore, in Malaysia, more in Singapore and more in Australia though. The students are more outgoing. They start working from the age of 15 years. They would have worked in different places, different variety of places and with different teams. So they get used to the team dynamics. But with us, we are always in our shell until we finish our graduation. And the moment we step out of our colleges and step into a campus or step into a company, it's a new environment to us and it takes a toll on us to get adjusted to it. And we think we come with a perception and we think everyone else should be either at the same pace or should be able to match to our pace. But then that is exactly where we at Unify had put up these campus radio teams across the campuses. And in each of these teams, in each of this campus radio, there are 8 departments, like 8 different areas of work. Now, all of these 8 departments will have different leads, and then we have a CEO, a CTO, a CQO, and a CMO. So all of this corporate structure is what we are trying to put up in our campus radios, so that they get to understand working in a team. They understand how each person's pace is different to the other. I mean, I really love the example of your dad and mom, because I'm married to and I really go through the same stuff. I mean,
trust me, these are the small lessons that we learn. And I always tell everyone, in fact, Ashoka, I was, from the first time I met you, I'm pretty impressed with what you're trying to do, right? It is you're bringing in that work dynamic into students from their college stage itself, which is very good. And also what I see is that things are changing, and people like T-Hub are actually starting entrepreneurship programs for college students where you are getting a taste of what it is going to be after you finish your college during college itself, right? And I would suggest, I would encourage college students to be a part of all these initiatives which are being thrown open to them, and take as much advantage as you can of all that, and be cognizant even when you're doing things at home or when you're doing things with your friends. In the back of your mind, try to align all these to teamwork, to leadership, and to the same things. Like, why am I getting irritated if someone is not doing something as fast as I am doing? You know, I had that problem. I used to get very irritated. I used to speak very, very fast, right?
Yeah.
I used to get very aggravated when I would sit in groups where people are talking very slowly or not catching up with my speed, but it doesn't really help. And after a few years, I realized that, you know, for my own success, I need to be open and I need to be inclusive. That is the biggest word. We need to be inclusive of everybody around us. And that's
I
key.
would love if you can elaborate more on the word inclusive, because that's a small word that actually means a lot when we are working with other members. In fact, the very idea of introducing project work in engineering, even while we were studying engineering, where we had to submit a project as our 4-2 kind of academic requirement. We were supposed to go out and work in teams. And then that is when we were expected to learn the inclusiveness of working with our teams. So please throw some light on what do you really mean by inclusivity, and let our members get some.
Sure. Thanks a ton. That is one of the most favorite areas of mine, right? Diversity and inclusion. And trust me, there is one phrase which I really love the most. It says, if diversity is inviting people to your party, right? Inclusion is asking them for a dance, right? So a lot of times what happens is, in the name of diversity, which is concentrating on having more people around us and getting everyone, which is a very important thing, but more important is inclusion as well. Because inclusion starts with simple things, very, very simple things. Like, if there are 4 people sitting in a meeting, right? We will always have different personality types, right? There are people like me who will keep on talking, and we need someone to tell us actually that your time is up. And there are others who are shy, who probably have a lot to talk, but then they need to be prodded to talk, right? Inclusion starts with very small things, as going around the table, right? After you talk for a while, or after you put your view out, just don't jump to the next one. Ask everybody on the table, what do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Are you on the same page? Would you like to say something else? Do you think what I said is right? These are questions which actually make a person feel included and make them feel like being a part.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Being a part, right? And let me give you another small example where I look at it as non-inclusion. Now, there's an entire team, right, which is waiting to take a team picture, right? And there is one person out of the team that must have gone somewhere. They must have gone to have some water. They must have gone for a nature's call break or whatever. And the rest of the team lands up taking the picture without trying their best to get that other person into the picture. That is an example of non-inclusion. That person might not say anything, but it could just be a picture. It is just a small picture, right? But that speaks a lot about how inclusive is the team, right? In a team of 5 people, if you are not able to figure where that one person is missing and not wait for that one person to come in for the picture, it is not talking great about inclusion. So inclusion starts with very, very small things. And my suggestion is, make it your second nature. make it your second nature, and then that is going to take you to places that you've never imagined you would go to.
Now, Bhuvina, I've got a basic question. So when we're talking about inclusion and when we're talking about the usual academic rush that we get into, especially when we are in college. I remember when we pass on, when we get into our +2, we're always in that race to get into a good college. And as soon as we get into a college, we are in a race to get into a good company. And with this race where we're trying to cross or take over the rest of the people and stay ahead of the race, is there a group work or a group dynamic that is missing that the colleges should more insist on, where they'll have to put in more group assignments and group projects right from the first year, so that they'll inculcate the habit of inclusion or the understanding of inclusion into these students? Do you think somewhere that is missing badly?
Not comment about colleges because I'm not working with them, so I will not comment about it, but I can talk over how we can make that happen, right? A classic example is initiatives like what you're already doing. Now,
Yes.
this particular platform of Let's Talk in itself is a huge example of inclusion, right? We are asking people to come and talk, to open up. So we are including them in a larger conversation that's happening at the level of a world, at the level of our
Yes.
world, right? So that is inclusion. And when you go to college, right, number one is, see, that's how, fortunately or unfortunately, again, I will not comment on subjects which I'm not an expert at, which is the education system, because neither have I taught nor have I created parts of that system, but we have been a part of the system as large as a student, right? My suggestion, my sincere request to all the students I talk to, or my nieces and nephews who are growing up right now, is do not be in a race. Do not be in a race. Keep your mind open to all the possibilities and do utilize the advantages that your generation has, right? In our generation, we did not really know what all were the opportunities after doing a particular thing. I end up giving my example in a lot of cases because I know myself the best, right? More than anybody else. Now, see, I did my +2 with biology as the major. And then I said, no, I got to become a doctor. Then for whatever personal reasons, my father said, sorry, girl, you're not becoming a doctor. You're not cut out for that. He said, I know your nature more than you know yours. He said, you are not a person who can be a doctor. Then I said, okay, I've done biology. So if I don't become a doctor, what do? I became a geneticist. But I studied genetics. I became a geneticist. And then I realized that all the work that I'll be doing is sitting at a desk. But that's not my personality. I cannot sit at a desk. And then I went to Mudra. I studied communications, and then I got into branding. But by the time I got into branding, I'd already been doing 5 to 6 years of science and business development and various other things. So we were just going with the flow and trying to look at, okay, what more can we get, as opposed to today's youth who has so much available at the tip of a search button, right? Understand, as you're studying, I understand you get into engineering colleges, you get into medical colleges, but as you're studying, utilize these 4 years to first understand what your personality type is, what your basic skill set is, and what do you enjoy doing. And when you pick up something in lines with what you enjoy doing is when you will actually succeed. So let me give you the corporate version of this, right? Because I want to do justice to our topic, which is campus to corporate. So let me give you the corporate, taste of this. They hire people like me to do something called employee engagement. Now, why do we do employee engagement? Obviously, because they're disengaged, right? And why are they disengaged? They're probably disengaged because half of them are not doing what they like. And on top of that, half of what they can do can be done by an AI logarithm. algorithm, sorry, by an AI algorithm now. So what is going to be your differentiator? Your differentiator is going to be your creative skill set that you're going to bring to your job, which cannot be replaced by any machine. And that's what you need to start concentrating on right from your college days. Well, you need to get into a job. All of us need to do a job. We will. But how are you bringing that edge in your job, which others are not being able to bring? That will be because you have that one skill set that maybe others do not have. Now, what is that one skill set is something that you will need to figure out for yourself. And that I would urge students to think of, to look at. Look inside yourself.
Sure, ma'am. I've got another question from Bhargav. It says, what sort of skills will a company expect from a fresher? What if a student is not that fluent in English or do not add it to the curriculum? Is that organization mistake for expecting more or the mistake of the educational institutions? Can you please explain me how can they expect rocket science by teaching general physics?
Okay, well, Bhargav, one thing I tell everybody, English is yet another language. Do not think that somebody who is not fluent in English cannot gain success. No. If you have the flair to learn the language, if you think you would like to learn it because communication at work becomes easier, trust me, English is easier to learn than any other Indian language. English is easier than Telugu. English is easier than Hindi. If you want to, you can learn it. But again, at the same time, I would not say that that is something which is going to define your success. No. Your success gets defined by how are you able to put forth your ideas in an executable manner. Right? And that putting forth of ideas should be language agnostic. But having said this, again, fortunately or unfortunately, English has become the medium of expression in organizations of late. But I respect anybody who comes up front to me and tells me, hey, you know what, I have a great idea, but I'm struggling to put it in the language that might be acceptable. Can you help me? Go to people who can help you. There are people who can help you. For example, if I go to Poland on some assignment, right, I'm going to take help from somebody over there because I do not know how to speak Polish. I will, right? I will. You will find enough people who will help you. Reach out to your manager, reach out to your peers, reach out to your buddies who know the language a little more than you, and tell them that this is the problem you're facing, and I would like to address that. Have that. But just because you feel that language is your problem, do not allow the idea to fizzle out. And trust me, it has not been said for no reason that where there is a will, there is a way. You have to figure it out. You will have somebody in and around you who will know your language that you are comfortable in. Catch hold of that person. Try to put it into a presentation, put it into a format, put it into whatever, but bring your idea out. And there will always be the corporate communications folks. It is misunderstood that corporate communications is meant to be talking only what the organization wants to talk. There are internal communicators. And in my team, my internal communicators, one of their mandate that I give is, please be open. I have an open Friday every week, right? I have an open house on every Friday where me along with the communicators are available for anybody within the organization to come and take help on these kind of matters. If someone wants to come and tell me that, you know what, I want to learn more English, I tell them, yeah, I give you time, come to me, talk to me. Or if someone says, hey, you know what, I'm not really interested in learning up the entire language because I don't want to become another Bhuvna, but I just need your help in putting this idea out in a manner that it will be accepted and understood. So we help them with that. So there are teams, and I think organizations and communicators are getting more and more open to helping employees this way. And If you do not find someone, suggest to your HR people that you require help in these particular fields. And trust me, organizations are moving to becoming more inclusive. They will help. But the point is, you have to ask. I don't know how many people sitting out there know Telugu, but there is this one phrase or saying in Telugu which says, "Adagakapote amma kuda pettadu," which actually means your mother also will not know when to feed you if you do not ask, right? So you have to ask. It is okay. What maximum? You will probably get a no as an answer. Generally, you will not, but nobody can kill you for asking, right? You either get a yes or a no, and that's fine. Ask, get help, but get yourself out there.
From our general upbringing, I've also observed this, which is coming out of my experience. When I was working in India, even before that, when I was studying in India, we were always inhibited, or we had this inhibition to not to ask our elders or not to question our elders. So that is how we are grown up. So what has happened is, I think, I'm just assuming that this would have been one of the reasons that we are not able to ask questions. Now, when we enter our teenage, we have a bundle of questions that we would want to ask, but we are never allowed to ask. And after that, when we enter our colleges, we are in this hurry of racing ahead of our peers, and we get into that race. And then when we enter the corporate, I've seen a stark difference in how corporates behave in India to how corporates behave elsewhere. In India, I've seen that we are still having those inhibitions to ask a question, to get clarified. I mean, times are changing. There's more disruption happening in the corporate sector than anywhere else, because the startup culture is catching up, and there's a lot of questioning that is being happening everywhere. So I see that it is changing, and it is changing for good. But I still see that we'll have to inculcate this questioning behavior right from our early days, right from the time when we are growing up in our colleges, and we got to ask more questions to our professors as well as to the friends. I'm sorry if there are any professors on the call today that I'm instigating the students to ask more questions, but it is required. Please take my word. If you're not asking questions today, it is hard for you to get into that mode anytime after. I'll go to a...
Yes, please, go ahead.
Are you on? Yes. I'll go to another question. It says, just give me a minute. It says, "Good afternoon, sir, ma'am. I always try to help out as much as I can when someone is in need, even if they are just classmates. But now it turned out into that they think I'm someone for whom everything is easy to do. At first, I tried to explain them that everything is not easy for me, and that I have this in me, that I don't give up. But they would not take a note of it and say it's easy for you. It is okay for my mental health. Is it okay for my mental health, like being surrounded by people like these? I'm not sure if it is okay to sometimes feel low because of these people. For you, for your note, they are my classmates, and I'm currently in my third year of BTech. I've been facing this from my first year. Please advise."
Sure.
That's, yeah, please.
Sure. I would request all students to not take everything too seriously up to heart this way. Because I know mental health is becoming a very, very, very sensitive issue. And to a very large extent, from a young age, you need to understand what are things that you will allow to affect you and what are things you will not allow to affect you. As a person, you are someone who likes taking up things and helping people, which is a brilliant trait. Do not leave that. But somehow, make sure that what is being told for that is not something which is going to affect you or demoralize you. Right? It is okay if people think you're a person who knows more than others. You can clarify it to them. And if something like this is persistent, please reach out to people who are trained to address these kind of issues. right? Like Ashoka, you have a psychologist whom you get on the sessions, right? And you have psychiatrists who come on this session. So if something
Yes.
is persistently disturbing you, go to the right kind of person to get help. Because what happens is when we think something, different things affect people differently, right? There is no panacea for mental health. There is no one kind of a cure fits all, because what an issue which is sensitive for me might not look sensitive to you at all. And something that is actually rattling you up from inside, I might not even understand, right? So make sure that, number one, do not ever get into a situation where you're doing more than you can handle. That is the beginning. Do not burn yourself out. Never. There is nothing which is eligible. No cause is eligible for burning yourself out. Do as much as you can do in the purview of you being happy, you feeling a sense of achievement, but not to the level of feeling, I am doing all this, but what for? Don't get to that. And as much as possible, when there is negativity which is coming to you, right, try to stay away from negativity. But at the same time, if you breathing is making people annoyed, you can't stop breathing, right? Like if you like doing a lot of work and people are saying things like, you know, we think you know everything. Try to wait for a second and understand and analyze, why are they saying that? Are they saying it out of jealousy? Are they saying it out of sarcasm? Or are they being genuine about it? And if someone is genuinely telling you that you probably know more than the others, or you probably can do better than the others, that's actually a compliment, right? If it's coming out of genuinity, it is a compliment. Also, be very careful about how much you allow external things to affect you. And anything which is affecting you over and over again, wait, reflect, and reach out for help. Reach out for help no matter how small the point is. And halt. When in doubt, stop doing it for a while. Stop doing it for a while. Talk to the relevant people. Try and see how you're feeling. If you stop it, or if you pace it at a different level, and see how you're feeling. And if that's making you feel better, bingo, you have the answer. And if it is not, please reach out. Reach out to elders in your family. Reach out to platforms like this. Reach out to, and Ashoka actually has opened up a very, very beautiful platform where on certain days of the week, I'm talking more generic about, how you conduct yourself at the corporate and what are the small tips and trips that you can utilize for visibility and to handle your peers and stuff like that. Similarly, he has experts who are talking about psychology, about psychiatry, about looking and taking care of your mental health. Log in on the days when they're there and ask questions which are constantly worrying you. You will get very, what should I say? You will get the right answers from them.
Thank you, ma'am. And as you've rightly reminded, we have got a psychiatrist joining us tomorrow. So I would love to take questions from all of you on your mental wellness issues. And please write and reach out to us. At the same time, I'm also reminding you to raise your hands if you want to directly talk to our guests today. And I'm moving on to the messages that you have got. It says, my question is like my parents aren't supporting and it leads to many misunderstandings. And finally, my brain gets struck for it. How should I overcome from it? It is destroying my personal life and I'm unable to concentrate at work. Please guide me, ma'am. This is more of a, yeah, please, if you want to take it up.
This is, I am, unfortunately of late, I have been listening to a lot of these questions, and it is difficult. I think there has to be someone who has to make your parents understand that they reach out and get some parental counseling. Now, my suggestion over here to you would be, if your parents are not understanding, do you have any other relatives of their age? Maybe your father's brothers or your father's sisters or mother's brothers, sisters, your grandparents, someone. Is there anyone in your family who at that generation, not your generation, obviously, because you want someone to talk to your parents, because they are being close to your thoughts. Is there anyone else in your family? Do you know any of your parents' friends whom you can open up and talk to, right? And have someone put in a word to them as to what is the problem you are undergoing, right? That would be a suggestion, because there is, I'll tell you, there's one of my cousin is extremely adamant. That fellow will not listen to anybody. He doesn't listen to his wife, he doesn't listen to his kids, and his son had a very, very similar problem. And his son is close to me, like I'm his bua, right? His son is close to me. So he reached out to me. He said, Bua, I don't know what to do with Dada. He's not willing to listen to me, and I can't make mummy put in a word because he is this chauvinistic person who thinks the man of the family knows everything and I don't need to listen to anyone. So I tried to cajole him, because he and I grew up together, right? So we are more of friends, right? So I tried to cajole him. I still try to, with him, like I have told my nephew, reach out to me anytime and I will be here to help you. So reach out to somebody else in your parents' circle who can be a listening aid for you and an influencing aid to your parents, right? If you find a person like that, you could probably go and talk to them about what you're feeling and make them make your parents understand that that is not how it is, and there are times when they should be open and they should listen to the children. And sometimes, trust me, an incessant effort, because at the end of the day, they gave birth to you, right? They're not your enemies. It's just that they're different parents who think differently. But no parent wants the bad for their child. So incessantly, you also maybe could look at what is a particular approach which they are not open to. Is there a different approach that you can go to them? Can you go to them with more of a pleading approach than I want to do this approach, right? Look at a combination of these two. Look at a combination of what approach of yours is going to make them actually listen to you. And if they're that rigid that they don't want to listen to anything that you're saying just because they think we are the parents and you have to listen to us, try reaching out for external help. And the external help has to be people of their age. The people of your age will obviously not be able to impress upon them.
Sure, that was good.
But I hope that has helped you, whoever has asked the question.
Yeah, if it isn't any, if it is not giving you a solution, please also reach out to our counselors that I'm going to have, so that they might have more ways of dealing with this situation. Because if you are getting pressurized with not being able to communicate with your parents, and if you're not able to figure out whom to talk, we are here to guide you and we are here to talk to you. You can always talk to any one of us. We'll be back every day at the same time and we'll be bringing on experts to talk to you. So please come back and we shall also put you through.
Ashoka, I want to add one more point. Maybe we could have one of our counselors also elaborate on this point of, I don't know how exactly that entire structure works, but maybe we could also give in a few tips and tricks on parental counseling. Not parental counseling is not going to help the students, but maybe there could be a mechanism where if we get more of these kind of questions, we could also open out a session for the parents at some point in time. Because we could bring a parental counseling expert and try to have that as well. You can take a call or you can take the number of questions from our students. And if there are a bunch of students who actually want their parents to be spoken to, we could maybe reach out to them in an appropriate manner, because that's going to give a holistic, resonance to this program.
In fact, the idea is to make this program so big that the parents will take interest in reaching out to us and understand what we are trying to do here. because
Ashoka,
if
I
they can
saw
start to-
someone just put a message. They want my contact details. You can please pass over my contact details, Ashoka.
Sure, I'll do that.
And just for everybody on the call, you can find me as Bhuvaneshwari Cheruvu on LinkedIn. Please send me a mail or please send me an invite. I am pretty active on LinkedIn, and on a daily basis, I keep myself free for an hour in the evening to respond to all my LinkedIn messages. So you can write, and as appropriate, we can share phone numbers and talk as well. I'm more than open to help wherever I can.
And also, ma'am is going to be a regular on our show. She'll be taking the Thursday slot every Thursday, and she'll also be part of a panel discussion that we're doing this Sunday. This panel discussion is going to be more around career and opportunity and challenges, and we're looking forward to that. So we'll go to the next question. In the meanwhile, if anyone would want to talk on the call, please raise your hand, and you should be able to talk to ma'am. The next question says, if the teammate does not know how to do something, is it better to let them learn on their own? And if they're not even giving a try to learn, how should I deal with it? Even after I explain them, how should it be done?
Sorry, Ashoka, can you please repeat it? Sorry.
It says, if a teammate does not know how to do something, is it better to let them learn on their own? Or if they are not even giving a try to learn them, how should I deal with it? Even after I explain them, how should it be done?
See, this is a very a common problem in the corporates as well, right? We have all sorts of people, and like I told you, there is no one size fits all solution, right? How you deal with them totally depends upon what your temperament as a human being is and what their temperament as a human being is, right? So, for example, there are times when if there is someone who is not able to learn, right? But that particular person is not able to learn and not willing to learn are two different things, right? My approach would be different. If someone is not able to learn, which is someone who takes a little extra time to learn than the others, I would handhold. I would spend more time with that person. I would probably give them different approaches to learn the same thing. But there are some people who are not willing to learn. It's not they're not able to learn, they just don't want to learn. Okay, those kind of people have to be dealt with in a different manner. Now, I would probably go to the level of changing the project or changing, but there could also be this thing, right? They're not interested in what is being given to them. So initially, when you're doing a teamwork, what makes sense is if there are 5 people, understand the top priority and the top interest of each one of the person or the top skill set, right? And divide work of the project accordingly. For example, I will give you my own team. Now, in communications, we have different functions, right? We have content writing, we have graphics, we have PR, we have internal communication, various of these things. Now, it really doesn't make sense if I bring a guy who wants to do graphic designing and put him into writing content. So understand what the interest is and then assign the work to them. And after the interest, education and everything is taken care of, even then if they're not able to perform, it always helps to understand why they're not able to perform. There are a lot of times when there is something personally affecting your resource, which is not allowing him to perform on the job or on the work. Be empathetic. Try to understand. Try to see if you can help him in the other area, which is actually stopping him from doing this. That could help. So when someone is not doing what they're supposed to do, before jumping to what you want to do with them, I would always suggest take a step back and analyze why they are not able to do what they are not able to do. And once you get the reason and the understanding of why they are not able to do, tackle the why they are not able to do. Don't tackle why are they not doing. That's not going to give you the proper answer. Why are they not able to do it? You get that reason and try sit with them and try to eliminate that source of why they are not able to do. And then they will automatically do. And ultimately, the worst case scenario, if someone is just just had attitude problems, right? There are people who have attitude problems, and those are the people we allow to go. Right? Like I always tell my HR when I am recruiting, I tell them, I don't need a topper. I need a person with a good attitude. Right? Elon Musk said that. Elon Musk said that when he was launching his SpaceX. He said, I want people with an attitude. The rest we will teach. I want people with the right attitude. Anybody who is willing to learn and put hard work, come to us. The rest we will teach. Right? That is what you need to do. And while picking up team members, one of the most important thing I see is how good are they? Are they willing to learn? Are they team players? Are they happy, positive people? That is what you look at when you're choosing your team. Unfortunately, there are sometimes we don't always get to pick our teams, and we get people like this. I would urge for anyone not to give up on a person who does not have a very great attitude immediately. Sometimes good attitude from you can actually change the attitude of the other person, provided you have the time and the inclination to change another person. Because leadership is all about how much are you able to give, not just how much are you able to take. And believe you me, leadership has nothing to do with the number of years of experience. Leadership has nothing to do with where you have reached in the rungs of the corporate level. Leadership is an intrinsic quality that you need to start nurturing at a very, very, very young age.
Oh, that was good. The next question says, in a corporate world, what makes us different from our fellow competitors? That's a small question, but that has got a very big answer. I'm sure. I'm sure.
So, number one, okay, as a youngster, learn to define competition, right? Learn to define competition. It's good. Competition is a nice word, and fortunately or unfortunately, it has become as loosely used as the word love, right? But you need to understand that competition has various facets to it. Various facets to it. And try to imbibe a sense of healthy competition inside you. Right? Competition is never to prove yourself over another person. My definition of competition is growing with each other while holding hands. That is the definition of competition that I want each one of you to imbibe into yourself. Right? And how do you shine out? Is, like I told you earlier, there is only one way to shine out. Figure out what you are good at. Figure out what you are good at, and you put effort into making yourself better in what you're good at. Like, this is a cliched statement that I'm going to use, right? A lot of people keep saying that your competition always, you will be a winner when your competition is with yourself. When you're trying to become a better version of yourself every day, how can I be better than what I was yesterday? How am I going to be better 10 days down the line? Right? When you start concentrating on that, what you start doing is, with people around you, you start taking their help. You start asking them, hey, you know what? I think you do this better than me. How do you do it better than me? Learn from competition. You don't always have to win in everything. Like I keep telling my sister, I give a lot of examples of self because I've learned from it, right? My sister has 3 children, okay? And she does a very, very demanding job in the US, all right? And she wants to be superb at everything. She wants to be a super wife, a super mom, a super dancer, a super data scientist, and everything. And she's in a senior role. I tell her, babe, hold on, relax, relax. You don't have to be number one in everything. Pick one where you want to be on the top and be good in the other areas. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out, which is not needed. And I tell everybody this. I have utilized it for myself, and it helps. It gives you a lot of, and the moment you embrace competition, you're going to grow with competition. And trust me, competition is not enemy. Competition is not enemy, competition is not evil. But the sorrow is that we are being taught to treat competition like an enemy, which is wrong. Treat competition as your friend, right? And learn from it. Learn from it, make yourself better on a daily basis. And one sincere request, it's okay. It's okay if you're not the best in everything. It's okay if someone else is better in something that you're doing. Because there are times when you're better than others, right? So it's fine. That's how. Learn. Hold your competition close. Be friends with your competition. Learn from your competition. Teach your competition. Grow together. I hope I've answered the question, or at least given some thoughts of mine on it.
In fact, unfortunately, the competition that we get exposed to is the state level ranks that are put up on our newspaper front page, that is shown to me by my dad and says, when are you going to be part of one of these people? Why are you not there on the newspaper? Or when will you be that someone, and when will I read some news about you? So that's the kind of competition that we always grew up with. So it was
I see that, Ashoka. I see, and it's a very sad part of our culture where parents are also gauging the intelligence of their kids. Number one, I think we are overrating this concept called intelligence. It's okay. It's okay. You need to know what you want to do. Intelligence is a very comparative thing, just like beauty, right? A rocket scientist might not be intelligent enough to run a home. So there are a lot of people who think homemakers are not great, but according to me, I think homemakers are awesome. I cannot do what a homemaker does. I don't know if 24 hours are given to me. And initially when they said we're going to have a lockdown, the first 1 week I called up my brother. I said, dude, I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die. I don't know what to do with 24 hours if I'm not going out and working. Right? And just look at a homemaker. She is doing things brilliantly across the 24 hours and keeping so many other things happening that we don't even know. I don't know how to manage my maid, which is not good news. Right? So a competition that, and also trust me, I will tell everybody that your intelligence and your worth is not the rank, is never the rank. Okay, you don't have to be on the newspaper in that tetrahedron top 10 rankers of IIT JEE or MSET. You could be in the newspaper for being a fine arts guy, for being someone who has given a very creative solution to something. Or let go of the newspaper. You could create a brand for yourself on your own social media platforms, talking about what you like. That's your worth. And never allow somebody else to set your worth. Yeah. You set your worth. Period. There is no two ways about it. And if someone else is trying to tell you how worthy or how unworthy you are, you can always tell them that they have a right to their opinion, but they have a responsibility to keep it to themselves till the time it is asked for.
In fact, after we have set up Unify, you got to see the sheer number of students who are trying to be something else than what they would have imagined they would be. I mean, we have got so many RJs, we have got so many designers, we have got so many creative directors. Now, all of these people are trying to come out of their shell, and they're trying to be different. So I can listen to my own words. I'm not sure why is this happening. So I'm a little confused at the moment.
We can hear you, Ashoka.
Sure.
We can hear you.
I'm taking one last question for the day today, and then we'll end our session. It says most of the people have a stage fear, and they're not able to speak, and they're not able to convey the message to anyone. So give some ideas or suggestions to this. I would like to add something here. So guys, please, trust me when I say this, I myself has stage fear. I'm having stage fear, and I'm very I'm very insecure about the way I talk. I'm very insecure about the language that I use or the vocabulary that I use. And that is why I'm taking more chances to talk. That is why I'm taking more opportunities to talk. And that is why I never leave a chance to go and talk to someone and present my ideas and views, because that is how you come out of your stage fear. You start taking more opportunities, you start going out of your shell and talk to more people. That is when you become more confident to talk, not only in front of a small group of people, but you'll be more confident to talk in front of the world. So you got to believe in yourself and start taking more chances to talk. That's the only mantra. There is no other secret recipe here. You got to take more chances. You got to speak. You got to go out and talk to people, and your stage fear will be gone. Even today, when I stand on a stage, when I talk to a group of people, I shiver in the first few seconds. I search for words. Even when I'm talking now on a live show with about 50, 60 people looking at it, I have this fear that I might be doing wrong. But trust me, if you cannot take your chances, if you do not take an opportunity to talk, you'll never be able to get that confidence that you're looking for. So you got to talk. You got to take more chances. Ma'am, please add. I'm looking at you to give more things here.
Sure. And Ashoka, you're bang on. You're absolutely right in what you said. And let me tell all of you one thing. Even the biggest speaker in this world has the first couple of seconds of butterflies every time he or she gets on the stage. I must have gotten on the stage 1,000,000 times in my life till now, right? Okay, that kind of gives away my age, but yeah. But every time there is those initial butterflies always. So stage fear is not for one person or two people. Everybody has it. Okay, now I'll get to some tips and tricks to get over the stage fear. Okay, these are things that I practiced right from my childhood, and they've really helped. Okay, what you do is always, no matter what it is, rehearse. Rehearse, and rehearse. You know what my favorite pastime is? Actually, every day, I spend 15 minutes rehearsing some part of my job or the other in front of the mirror. Okay. To begin with, what you can do is take out the newspaper and start reading the newspaper out loud in front of the mirror. Okay, this is what I was taught as a child. My grandfather used to tell me this, okay. I don't know how scientifically proven this is, but apparently why we get scared on the stage is not because we are afraid of the people sitting in front of us. No, we are not afraid of them. How can we be afraid of people whom we don't even know, right? We are not afraid of the people sitting in front of us. We are afraid of the image that we are portraying of ourselves in front of all those people. So that is something that we need to come to terms with. And how do you get confident about the image that you're portraying? By looking at yourself and speaking to yourself in front of the mirror. And when you start feeling comfortable, that fear of how am I going to look on the stage? How am my hands going to move? How am I going to make eye contact? All those things are what is subconsciously making you, see, this is not any proven scientific study, but this is something that I observed and I understood. And the moment you feel that you've rehearsed well and you're able to talk to yourself in front of the mirror, right? You go on the stage, you will not have fear. Because it is not possible for you to have fear of people whom you don't know. So try that out. Try that.
Said it's fear of our image, because every time we get into that feeling that what if people think about me like this? What if people judge me that way? What if people are...
That is the fear. That is the fear.
So when we come out of...
you need to come out of. And there is somebody else who has just put up a question saying, any good books for communication? There are some beautiful courses on Coursera. There are some very good courses on Coursera which give you effective English speaking for professionals or business communication classes. So please log into Coursera, Most of those courses are free, and just do those. Because everything, all this has to be practical, you know. Reading grammar books at this age is actually not really going to help. And I don't know how many English teachers are going to agree with me or not. Frankly, I'm a communicator, but I'm not an English teacher. But I personally think, and this is the suggestion I've given people, if you want to improve your English, keep talking in English to everybody. Okay? It is only by talking and observing and talking and correcting yourself that you will bring that into your understanding. And if you want, do not concentrate on having a very, very, very huge vocabulary. Concentrate on getting the basic grammar right. You don't have to have 100 lakh words in your vocabulary. You can use the same words. But the basis is, the trick is to get your grammar right. That's all. And that comes by practice. That comes only by practice. I'll give you this other example from my own life. One of my cousins was born and raised in Tenali. So he studied in Telugu medium till he finished his inter. And he came to Hyderabad only to do his degree. He was my father's brother's child. He came here and he was living with us. Trust me, that boy told me, Didi, I'm going to talk to you in English no matter how many mistakes I make throughout the day. Trust me, 1 year he did that. And he said, just keep correcting me. Okay. 1 year. After 1 year, the way he used to talk, nobody ever believed that he's from a Telugu medium. It's very easy. It's very, very simple. You have to keep practicing it. That's all. You're welcome, Sai Kirti.
It's actually persistence in our
Yes,
trying
yes.
to excel what we are. Because
And
trust me,
also, sorry, Ashoka, I just want to add one more point. Don't feel let down that what if I speak something wrong? Do you not see when you have all these major competitions or whatever that come online? There are so many country presidents and the heads of huge organizations, like the Japanese guys, the Chinese guys, the Korean guys, they don't even speak English. They have a translator with them.
yes.
Right? And they speak English. They speak broken English. So English is not the gauge for your intelligence or leadership or any of those sorts. First, get out of it, of that thought. And tell people, I am trying. I am trying. I might go wrong, but I am trying. That's all. It's okay to speak broken English once in a while. It's all right. Nobody in this world can penalize you for using wrong grammar. Only the communicators will lose their job if they don't write proper grammar in the emails. That's all. Nobody else will get affected by using 1 or 2 words wrong. Stay assured of that.
In fact, nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is an expert. So are the 99.99% people out there. They're never perfect. So we got to try, we got to talk. And that is how we'll improve. And thanks a lot, ma'am. I mean, it's been a wonderful afternoon with you.
Thanks for having me, Ashok.
We're getting more questions here, but please do understand that we have a limitation of time. We would want you to pick up your questions and send them to lets.talk@unify.com. I'm repeating it. It's lets.talk@unify.com. If you can email your questions, ma'am will be with us next Thursday, and she's also going to be part of a panel discussion the coming Sunday at the same time. And this panel discussion is going to be really good. It is all around career, it is about opportunities, and it is about the challenges, and it is about the current trends, the prevalent trends for the youngsters. So please do join us tomorrow as well as on the panel discussion. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your time. And thank you all.
Ashoka. And thank you everyone, students, for being there. Do connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to help wherever you feel like. There was one last question, I think, which just flashed on the screen just when we were ending. I'll just, Yasmin, I think, was the person who said, how do I present myself at the time of interviews? That's going to be a long answer, Yasmin. So do connect with me. Put your question on LinkedIn. I will give you all the tips and tricks that I have used in all interviews in my life. And I hope it helps. And even otherwise, maybe on the next Thursday, we will pick that topic up.
Starting from next Thursday, let us pick up one topic which will be extensively discussed, and we shall come up with more and more in-depth analysis of that situation analysis, as well as we take more challenges around that one particular topic. It can be placements, or it can be presenting yourself during the interviews, or it can be your first day at the office. How do you want to present yourself at the first day of the office? So let us pick up one topic every week, and we should be able to do justice to the topic. Thank you all. Thanks for joining. Thank you, ma'am. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Ashoka.
Bye-bye.
Bye.